right, welcome to the end of the week. So, PA4 questions.
So I wanted to ask about, I posted on this in Discord that the document says we need to, or the program needs to like disallow certain actions. So like if there's already a line placed somewhere, if you're going to place another line, does the program need to explicitly like pop up a box that says you can't do that, or can it simply not respond to that input?
I would mention somewhere, it doesn't have to be a pop-up. In fact, it shouldn't be a pop-up, but just, you probably want a text area somewhere that you can display general messages on, like whose turn it is, stuff like that. So yeah, if you just make a message there that says, but mostly the most important thing is to ignore it, right? Don't just let the person take a spot that's already taken.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, other questions? How's Eclipse working for people? Any major heartaches? I do not have a sample executable, but I showed you pretty much everything there is to know in class, but you can structure it however you choose, so you don't have to make it look like mine. But as far as gameplay, it's basically just what we went over in class. Alright, well, let's fire up Eclipse. And let's just start with a clean project. So I'll make our usual J-frame. And I'm going to continue to use an absolute layout manager. And we're going to do what we started to do yesterday, which was make our own J panel inside this J-frame, inside the content pane. And let's see if it's going to hang up on me again. Yeah, it's going to hang up for a few minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my J-frame. Okay, that's the outside. It includes your bars like that, and a little icon up here. And then inside here is the content pane that's created for me by Window Builder. And then I'm going to have my own thing inside here, which I'll call, I don't know, my game panel. And that's going to be a J panel extended into my panel. That's the thing that we're going to write the paint method in, so we can draw dots and so on and so forth. That's also the thing I'm going to pick up mouse events from, which means if somebody clicks outside this area, my code's never even going to see it. Okay, so that stops me from having to worry about, was the XY position inside my game panel. If I use the mouse handler in here, right, I'm guaranteed that if the person clicks in that area, I'll get a call to my code, otherwise I won't. And then I'm going to have, some other things up here like player 1, player 2, maybe their names go up there, and maybe over here is, you know, where I display the score, and maybe there's a button. And here's the thing, if I place these components in the content pane, then the content pane's code can access each of these. Okay. The trick is the code that I'm going to be running in response to a mouse click is part of the game panel, right? And it doesn't have direct access to these other objects. So we need to link those together. And there's a number of ways we can do this. And this seems to come up in almost every environment that I've worked in, be it Android Studio or Eclipse or NetBeans or whatever else. So let's see, Eclipse is still really wonked out. Okay, it's back. All right, so here's a J panel. Okay. Let's go ahead and make our own version. So we'll make a new Java class. I'll call it a game panel. And I'll just add the extension myself. And I'll let it import that for me. And let's just make a paint method. And we'll import graphics. So this is just to have something displayed. And as is, I'm not going to see anything here, right? Because I'm using a J panel for this. So let's change our code, and when we construct this new J panel, let's make that a game panel. And so if I run that, I'm seeing a circle, but this circle is inside my game panel. Okay, so it's inside this little area down here. So let's put a mouse listener inside this. So we'll add event handler mouse. Let's do mouse, we'll just do mouse motion. Alright, so we'll just print out XY coordinates by getting them from the arg that's passed to the mouse motion listener. And so out here, nothing's happening because I'm not inside the game panel, I'm just inside the content pane. But if I get down here, right, I can find the upper left corner of my game panel. Okay, now I'm picking up events. Here's 100, 100, where I drew my circle. It was 50 wide, so that's 150, 100, and so on. Okay, so that's good. That's going to make life a little easier, right? So let's put a text field in here, and let me call this text field player1. And when we run, you know, player 1 can type their name in here. If you want to display information, labels are useful for that, right? Labels are mostly static, so I can create a label and put something in, like type player 1's name. Right? Or you can do what's usually done and, you know, just initialize the text in here. Like that. So these are all your choice, right? All right. So here's the thing. The content pane is where we're going to drop all of these widgets. We're going to drop down push buttons, and we're going to have, you know, text fields with people's name, or that we're going to display scores in, and so on. But the game panel, right, is the thing that's going to run when we get an event, right? When the mouse moves, we're going to hop down here. And this code doesn't know anything about well, maybe it does. It's game panel. This might just work, actually. Alright, let's try this. So, what is our text field called? Let me make another text field. Let me just call this info. So let's see if we can write into this text field in response to mouse clicks. So info, yeah, info is a text field. Okay, well, this is going to work, I think. So I'm going to just call info set text method to display some information in that text field. Okay, well, this works better than I was expecting / hoping. So how can I force it to give you the difficulty that you might get into later? Alright, well, don't worry about this, okay? When I coded this up, I was having the following issue, which was that this pane was set up elsewhere. Okay. So here's the issue we're going to run into. Right? Okay, so the mouse listener inside the game panel has access to these widgets, okay? The problem is that the game panel class itself, the object you construct of type game panel, does not have access to those widgets, right? This is its own class. And if I wanted to, say, read the player's name and display that, you know, inside the drawing area, I don't have access from this class to this text field, right? So that's the link up that we have to worry about. All right. So here's what we want to do. right? We want to string goes first. So we want our paint method to do something like paint some text, okay? And we'd like that text to come from here because you're going to have the person type in, you know, people's names on the board and so on and so forth. And we need to get that to our paint method. Okay, so let me show you a few different ways to do this. Here's the most straightforward way. It's potentially kind of sloppy, but it works, okay? In our game panel, if we had access to this frame, right, we could ask for this text field's getText method. Okay. The frame itself has access to the game panel because it constructs it. Okay, so the mainframe can get to the game panel. The game panel can't get to the mainframe. Okay, so here's what you can do. After you construct the game panel, we can just save the mainframe in the game panel object. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say panel save parent. And I'm just going to save this. Okay, I'm going to make a method called saveParent in the game panel, and I'm going to pass it this. Okay, remember this means me. And so over here, I'm going to make a method to remember who our parent is. And we're going to pass an argument which should be of type whatever this thing is, which is a mainframe. Okay, so it's going to be passed a mainframe parent. And then I'm going to save this in a class variable. And I'm going to make a variable up here. Okay, and this is going to be the object that we belong to. Okay, this is going to be this thing. Okay, the mainframe that is actually constructed right here. Okay, so when we construct the mainframe, one of the first things we're going to do after we construct the game panel, tell the game panel who we are. Okay, once we do that, we can do the following. We can say the player name is parent dot player1 dot get text, and I need to get the name right. So that's player1. So player1 is a JText field. And I just won't make it private. Alright, so what's the action here? When this panel gets created, the saveParent method is called and told who the parent is. We save that in this local variable parent. Okay. And then when our paint method is called, we use parent to get to the player1 JText field. We call the getText method. That should tell us what's typed into that player name box. And then I'm just going to use that in my drawString call. So everything is tied together now. I can run this, and if I type something in here, right, if this window gets redrawn, right, it'll read from, you know, this text field and show me the contents there. All right, so this is a one-time setup, right? It's basically letting this panel know who the parent is, and then we can get to any of the parent's variables. And you know, this is your code. It's okay to make these things non-private. You can make them protected, so that the game panel class can access them. And now you can read all of the widgets. You can modify all of the widgets from inside your game panel. So if I wanted to draw different things based on what the user has typed in and so on and so forth, right, you can do that. That's the easiest way to link these things together. A harder but maybe cleaner option is, come on, don't crash. I broke it. Harder but maybe cleaner option is inside our mainframe, right? We can put event listeners on, say, the text field, so that every time that you type in that text field, we take the new name and we pass that to the game panel, right? Because the mainframe has access to the game panel because it constructs it. And so you can use that to keep the local variables in the game panel in sync with the mainframe. And there's other ways to do it too, but easiest way is just pass the identity of the parent. Now, what have we set up? We've basically set up situation where the parent has access to the panel and the panel has access to the parent. Right, so we're just making the information shareable. I seem to have broken Window Builder though, and I think it's because of making these things not private, maybe. Or maybe it just broke. Alright, well, Eclipse weirdness continues. Because I've lost my whole setup over here. Alright, I don't know what I did here. Let me go back into Eclipse. Well, something really bad has happened. Has this happened to anybody? Has your Eclipse totally like lost the ability to display GUIs? Okay, well that's good at least. Your window builder broke and you had to finish programming the interface by hand. That's not good. And if you make changes in this code, right, sometimes that breaks it, but usually it breaks it pretty slightly. It breaks it in a way where it says, you know, do you want me to try again? And if you say yes, that will usually fix it. Yeah, like this. And then reparse will sometimes get you there. So I think this is a glitch in Window Builder. I'll tell you what I think is going on in a second. All right. This is well, I thought I knew how to break it, but I don't. Okay. Well, what I thought was so here's the thing. When you switch to the design tab, Window Builder is basically interpreting your code, right? To display a semi-accurate picture of what your frame looks like. So for example, my my content pane has a game panel inside, and that game panel says let's fill an oval and let's draw a string. So in my design window, I'm actually seeing that. I'm seeing the circle that's going to be drawn. I'm seeing the thing that's going to be displayed. I think what's happening was that I said that the thing that's being displayed should come from here, right? But we just did this funny thing where this reference was set up by calling this save parent business, right? Right here. And I think Window Builder got tripped up by that. Because it hadn't actually constructed the parent. So this was not planned, but it's actually a pretty good lesson. Sometimes you have to work with the tools, right? If you've done Engineering 270, you know this from using MPLab, right? It doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. And there's a reason for it. It's not purely buggy per se, but sometimes you need to get a little bit creative. And I think what's happening here is it's the business of trying to get to the parent, right? So I'm gonna do this. Yeah, I have tried IntelliJ, and it may be less buggy, although I'm not sure of that. But it feels like it's much more dogmatic to me. Like it really forces you to do things with a certain look and feel. And I didn't think that would be helpful for people trying to learn this stuff first up. But yeah, Window Builder honestly is not terribly well supported. I think it's like 1 or 2 people maintaining the code, and I'm thinking this might be the last year that I use Window Builder, because this has been getting to be more and more of a problem. But I'm not sure I want to go IntelliJ, because IntelliJ is such a, Thor-style hammer. Let me try this though. Because technically I should do this, right? If the parent has not been saved yet, let's just return. Otherwise, I'm trying to display, a get text method on a widget that I'm getting from a null parent. And so this will work the same for us. But I'm thinking this might work better for Window Builder. Alright. So that's maybe my bad more than the tools. My belief is that as soon as the game panel is constructed, right here, the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to save the parent ID. The problem here is that the Window Builder is not actually running this code, right? So it's using the code inside game panel's paint method, but if parent hasn't been saved by that call, then parent is null, and that's what's causing it to freak out. So it's not a bad policy anyway to make sure before you use parent that it's not null, and that seems to fix the problem. So long way around to a learning lesson. All right, so we're back in business now. And if that's just like way more confusing than useful, don't worry about it, okay? But if you get to a point where you're trying to access something in your paint method and you can't get to it, right, one of these widgets, come back to this, right, and look at what we're doing, and I think it will make more sense if you actually have a problem that this solves. And it's really just, tell the game panel or whatever it is you're painting from who the parent is, so that you can get to all of the parent's goodies, okay, the text boxes and labels and things like that. And then this works, if you have information displayed, if you're going to use a label to display the score, you can get to that from the paint method, and so on and so forth. And how you set this up is up to you. You may want to put all of the information about the game inside this game panel class, right? So your two-dimensional array of boxes can go in here, and then your paint method can get to that easily, and so on and so forth. But then when you click a button over here, this is happening, right, in this mainframe class, right? You need to run code from your game panel class to do things like reset the score, clear out the boxes, stuff like that. So be thinking about how to link these things together, basically. All right, so let's totally shift gears here. Let's talk about something else. And 2 side notes, okay? Remember, there's no class on Monday. Monday's a holiday. 2, I've changed my morning office hours. Okay, starting Monday, they're going to be at 3 in the afternoon, so right after the second class, instead of the 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock hours. So, and I posted that on Canvas, and the schedule's updated, so. All right, let's talk about documentation. So I like the documentation I've been seeing in people's projects. I like the indenting style and so on and so forth. Let's talk about Javadoc. Okay, Javadoc is the thing that that has the standard look and feel, right? And you can produce documentation like this for your own code. And if you're in Eclipse, it will fill in a lot of the typing for you. So here's how you make this happen. Start a comment block, but started with 2 stars instead of 1. So normally /* you can type a bunch of stuff, end it with a //. If I do /** right before a class, and I hit enter, I get a comment block, okay? And it's filled in a line that says, you know, @author Nick. Well, it knows I'm Nick because that's what I said when I installed Eclipse. But I can type things in here. So what should we say about this? Game drawing version of JPanel. Alright, and you can put in whatever you want about that. If I do the same thing before a method, no, it didn't give me my arguments. Bummer. Okay, that one worked. I don't know why the other one didn't. So I did /**, hit enter, and it gives me another tag here, @param. Okay, that's my argument. All right, so let me make something more interesting. Public integer cool method integer I character C string name string data. Alright, so suppose this is some interesting method that you've been working on, you've written this. Okay, so let's just type a /** and hit enter, and I get all these tags filled in for me. Okay, now this is just a comment block. You can put whatever you want in here, but let's put in something meaningful, right? So, so what is the cool method class? This is the class that does everything I ever wanted. It's cool. All right, and then I can add information over this. So parameter I, this is, I don't know, ID of something, and parameter C is single initial for somebody, and name is full name, last name first. I'm just making this up, okay? And data is array of addresses, and then the return value is number of matches. Okay, don't try to understand what this is. It's totally random. But here's the thing. You do this on all of your methods, okay? And I think it didn't happen on here because this is an overridden method. But methods that you write, right, will let you do this. So remember who created us, and my parent is a ID of our creator. Okay, and then come up here under project and say generate Javadoc. And I'm going to leave the defaults as they are. This will let me create documentation for just public methods right now. If I want to create documentation on private ones and so on, I can click those. I'm going to leave everything else as is. I'm not going to change any of those, but I'm looking at them. Alright, so we'll just say finish. Do you want to update the Javadoc location for Friday with the chosen destination? Sure, why not? Alright, well now we've got a whole bunch of stuff under a new directory. Okay, and I can look at these inside Firefox, but inside Eclipse, but let's actually go outside. and look at these just with our plain old browser. So I'm going to go under Eclipse, all workspaces, and this is called Friday, and there's a documentation directory. And we've got all of this stuff, okay? So let's look at good old index.html, and there's documentation on our game panel. Okay, it tells us the whole extension history, so a game panel is a J panel, right, which comes from all of that stuff. This is how it's declared. This is our description of it, right? Game drawing version of J panel, blah, blah, blah. There's who wrote it. We didn't define any fields in particular, so these are just the general fields. There's the constructor, right? And here's the methods. There's cool method, paint, and save parent. And it's all hyperlinked. You can click through. Here's the cool method. Right, that's how it's called, the type of arguments. This is the description of what it is, and then a list of all the parameters and list of what it returns. And you get all of this, right, by just typing in a few things before each method and before each class. Okay, so I've been asking you to do this anyway on your assignments, right? Document each class and then document each method. But if you do it with this /** and you're inside Eclipse, it will give you these tags that you can simply add information afterwards to say what each of these arguments does, what the return value means, right? And then you get this beautiful documentation for free, right? And you can look at it inside here. There's a mini browser in here. Oh, actually, it jumps outside. So you can click through them in here. And that's the one, if I had multiple classes, it would show all of them here, and you can click through to each class. And if you don't like frames, you can get a no frames version. So that's an option, okay? I'm not requiring it, but it can be useful, okay? And remember, we're probably going to extend PA4 into PA5. So it's nice to do this in a way that that isn't just throwaway code, right? Also, because you're working with other people, it might be nice to be able to have, you know, documentation that tells somebody, what does this method do, right? What exactly does my paint method do? It does this. What does it take in? What does it expect? And so on and so forth. So just habits, right, to build. And again, you know, thinking down the road, portfolio for internships, for jobs, things like that. It's nice to have a GitLab repo if people want to dig into your code, but honestly, a lot of people would be more interested in looking at your documentation, right? They may not necessarily need to see how you implemented this stuff, right? But this is a nice synopsis of a project, right? And it lets them see, you know, a rough idea of how much work was involved and how you broke it down and structured it and so on. And you can put, you know, these files, these are just plain old HTML files, right? You can put those in your GitLab repo. And you can point to them and you can reference them in your README, so when someone goes to your repo, they start seeing, you know, your Javadoc for your project. So it's a useful thing to play around with, right? And like I say, it's not required for your programming assignments here. I'd like to see, you know, good commenting in some form for your methods and your classes. It doesn't have to be this. But, you know, you've got time, you've got group dynamics to lean on. Explore it, right? Play around with it. And I think it's kind of fun. I think it's nice to have clean documentation. And some of the stuff that I've written years ago and I did a Javadoc for, right, I still use it today. And I find myself going back to the documentation because I don't remember what I wrote, you know, 6 years ago. And I don't want to go into the code to figure it out, right? Sometimes I don't even know where the source code is anymore. So I just, you know, have these doc files saved somewhere, and I can just click through and figure out how to call my methods and stuff. All right, so that's Javadoc, and there's a whole bunch of documentation. Oracle has a pretty good synopsis of this. That you can get from their website if you just Google Javadoc and find the page from Oracle. Bunch of tags you can use. Okay, author and parameters and returns are the main ones we did, but you can also link into other things. You can talk about exceptions that occur by saying throws. You can track version numbers and so on and so forth. All right, so I'll leave it there. Keep going on PA4, and Monday is a holiday, so I will see you on Tuesday. Have a good long weekend.